Hello and welcome to my video, or more like audio with some pictures and a lot of rambling. Uh, this video is going to be why I like Warhammer 40k. So, to kind of cover a very general topic, the stories and amount of lore and depth themselves have garnered my attention. The designs definitely help too. Uh, the amount of media that comes along with this franchise is absolutely mind-bogglingly insane, and eventually I look forward to starting that collection of here's this book, here's that book, here's XYZ side stories, here's all this other information. But with that, there's games, there's miniatures, there's uh, they've got a series of horror stories for this, and it's again a very fun thing for me when a franchise has a lot of lore and a lot of story. It's a little bit exhausting and a little bit intimidating, because every bit of me wants to dive in right off the bat into the main thing that grabs my attention. Um, and I think in this case, it wasn't just the Space Marines that garnered my attention to 40k. Um, it was one of the factions that very much drew my want to understand. Um, they fit into kind of a Lovecraftian storytelling where you don't really know the full story of why these things exist. All they do is they pop up, they consume, they destroy, they kill, they do whatever is necessary in order to continue existing and continue spreading. They grow and adapt, and they are probably one of the funnest concepts that I've seen. They remind me of xenomorphs. Um, this would be the Tyranids. Now, there's multiple factions, sub factions, Lord, it goes on. But I'm going to try to cover at least the basics in this video, um, especially with me being absolutely stupid and trying to explain these different factions in a way that makes sense to me without going too depth into lore. So my descriptions of these, I'm sure there's memes or jokes in the community about it, but this is me kind of just going based off of what it appears to me, and then if there's actual like jokes or commentary on this, sure, I'll cover it when I cover more specific factions. But this is the umbrella video for that, right? So, with that being said, the my understanding of the factions, I'm not going to say this as if it's full truth because, again, I'm not an expert on any of this, right? There's the Tower Empire, which is it's kind of the melting pot of different species. Um, you have aliens, humanoids, all these other things. You have, I think I saw some robotic designs. Um, there's Tyranids, which is space bugs on steroids, um, which I absolutely adore. They are horrifying in a fun way for me. Um, but anyway, there's the Necrons, which is zombie space robots. That's the best way I can describe them. There's again more depth to it, but I'm just kind of going with how I can explain it from my standpoint because, like I said, I'm an idiot. I'm not going to be able to go full depth into everything all the time, right? Orcs. The orcs are a fun twist. They're orcs, but if they were potatoes and fungus combined. To kind of explain that is from what I've read so far, they leave spores behind that grow underneath the ground to become more orcs. I'm sure there's more explanation to it, but that's the sum of what I got from reading. And so it's potato fungus orcs. Um, the Leagues of Votan. Now, I'm not sure if these are their own full on separate faction or if they're considered like an ally to something. But again, this is just a very general description. Space dwarves. um, I'm looking forward to the more in depth lore and understanding of these things. Um, I don't want to fully script them out because I want to stick true to myself, which is this madman rambling that I'm doing. Um, the Drukari, um, they the best way to sum it up is kind of the emo space elves or the dark space elves. They're a darker version of what is the Eldari. Again, I know there's more lore to it and a far more in-depth story, but that's again me going with the best way to explain it without going too in depth. Um, which leads me to the Eldari, space elves. Um, again, kind of a very generic way of describing them, but uh, as I get further down the line of different parts of different franchises, I will get more in depth into the separate factions or characters or that kind of thing. There's Chaos or Chaos Undivided. Um, they are the humans on steroids, but with demons and kind of, well, chaotic, ironically. Um, the Chaos, again, there's more depth to it, but that's the easiest way for me to describe it is the humans on steroids and demons. There's a lot more to it. They all have their own sub factions, their own classes, that kind of stuff. So I'll get more in depth as I go, but for the sake of simplicity, humans on steroids involved with demons. And then finally, and I'd say the poster boy for Warhammer 40k, the Imperium of Man, aka humans on steroids. Um, there's far more to them as well. A lot of lore, and I think there's a lot of lore for all of these, or at the very least, a good bit of lore that kind of helps build up why they are the way they are, how they function, what they do, that kind of thing. Um, as I said in the beginning of this video, the main thing that drew my attention was the Tyranids. I think of them as adjacent to like xenomorphs, or if anybody's familiar with the Starship Troopers franchise, the bugs. Like I said, space bugs on steroids. Um, they adapt, they grow, they have their own different like evolutions that are caused for specific purposes, and I think that's a really freaking cool thing. Um, and when I get to a video of, I don't know, an idiot discusses or dives into, or I think I'll stick to the idiot discusses franchise, not really copyrighted or franchise, but nonetheless, my series for An Idiot Describes, when I get to that, I'm going to discuss a little bit more about their uniqueness, um, because they're quite an oddball thing, and I hope more lore comes out they that exposes like more to their origin rather than, hey, they just came from this other galaxy and decided, all right, cool, we're going to consume everything here. And what's the proper term? Not subjugate, but just consume everything here. uh, I look forward to that. if it ever does happen. They're a really crazy and cool thing. And I think would be even cooler is if they did a more Tyranids made a Space Marine but organic style. I think that would be a fun concept. But again, I'm I'm going on a mad ramble about Tyranids. um, and they're all cool for their own different purposes. Uh, except the Tau Empire, I haven't dug much into the Tau Empire, so they don't stand out as much to me. Um, and I don't know how the different communities and whatnot see the Tau, but I don't see them as something overly great or fantastic yet. I'm sure as I get more into the franchise, the more I will understand. Now, one thing I want to say before I get to finishing off this madman ramble of stupidity about Warhammer 40k. So, when I say I don't like politics taking a major influence in my entertainment, what I mean by that is this franchise already has its own lore and build-up behind the Imperium of Man that kind of showcases certain aspects of different politics, right? It feels organic to the story. It feels like a way of getting yourself into this. I don't see it as a huge deal because it's built in, right? I'm not taking something from real life and then slapping it on there in this half-assed way of just trying to fit in something that makes no fucking sense. Um, I should have bleeped that out or censored myself. But anyway, more so if say I take a person, right, and I chop off one of their arms and need to replace that arm, I'm going to look for a human arm, right? It it's a more natural thing that fits with that. If I were to slap on a tentacle from an octopus, it would stand out like a sore thumb. That's not to say that that's a bad thing, but this is my problem that I have with a lot of media these days is they want to slap in and throw in this moral, I won't say brainwashing. It's it feels ham-fisted when something is thrown in rather than integrated. And this series is a good highlight of what a more natural built-in kind of set of politics has, right? Um, if I were to change anything in the stories, I'd want to make it make sense rather than just a blatant change, right? If Tyranids all of a sudden started working with the Imperium of Man, that would throw me off entirely. I wouldn't understand it. I'd be like, well, why? What's going on? Not, oh, cool. That's there. It would throw me off, and it would make me not want to fully get into it unless there was like a hint or something that showed that connection, right? And it's that same way with when you're changing lore or designs or factions. Now, if there's fan theories or ways to do that, that's cool, and I love that because that brings that depth out and kind of challenges the base design, but it doesn't just suddenly replace some part of it or suddenly slap something on like a freaking bright pink band-aid onto something, right? It and I think that's more for discussion in a different time. Again, this is why I like Warhammer 40k, so I'm going to stick to the more positive aspects. Um, but I think the different discussions, different like I've seen some fan made like chapters of Space Marines, and I think it's cool. And I think when that depth comes out and kind of challenges a thought process and makes you have to have that, or not really makes you have to, but when it allows for that conversation or that discourse, I like it, right? um I I adore what little I know, and the more I get into this, the more I go, oh, well, what if this? Well, what if that? Well, how can I see something being different or challenged or changed or modified, but in a way that still integrates with the existing lore? Um, and I think that's fair for any major franchise, but that's just me. I think fan engagement is what helps keep something alive and growing, rather than just, oh, well, these fans are terrible, get rid of them, right? Sure, you'll have your bad apples. Sure, you'll have your way to into a specific thing rather than open minded. But at the same time, I understand why people want to stick to that lore that exists. Um, but yeah, sorry, I know I went on a really stupid ramble there. Point being, I like Warhammer 40k. I like all the chaotic things that tie it together, the factions, the designs, the different stories. It's all fun for me until someone decides, oh no, I don't like you enjoying this, go away, right? I don't think it's fair to have that mentality. Um, and I don't think if I think if anyone told me I was wrong for having a thought process about this, I would go, okay, cool, go away, because I'm still going to enjoy it whether you like it or not, right? I think that's fair to me because I'm not going out of the way to do anything bad. Um, but yeah, that's it. Why I like Warhammer 40k. Um, Now, before I say my farewell, there's one more thing I kind of want to throw in here. I'm not familiar with Age of Sigmar, and I'm not familiar with just Total War or Warhammer. So I don't know the parallels. I don't know the full thing for every different franchise from this. Um, I think if I look into it and they stand out more, I will get more into those. But for now, I'm just going to stick with the primary for me, which is Warhammer 40k. And with that, I appreciate anybody who's watching this or listening to this, and I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to see what anybody wants me to cover, or if there's anything specific that kind of is similar. I know there's Trench Crusade. I haven't gotten anywhere near in depth with that. I know I need to look it up and get into it. I'm sure there's more tabletop games that are similar that I need to get into, but for now, until I have enough information on something, I don't really want to cover it. Um, and when I say enough, I mean like getting my foot in the door, right? Um, but I think that's about it. If you enjoyed listening to me go on a stupid rant and then go into another stupid rant, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. Um, any sort of engagement that I get from people who watch my videos, I will definitely do my best to reply or to kind of feedback with. I don't want to just go, okay, cool, you suggested this, and then never discuss it later on. Um, but yeah, thank you very much. Bye.